Hello, welcome to the Pop Astrology podcast. My name is Jessie Peterson and I am your host. Today I have the most exciting episode for me in the whole entire world because we are going on an astrological joyride through the life and career of one Kesha Rose Sebert, bisexual icon, Pisces, everything about her just fabulous. My role model since I was 15, 16, but there's so much to cover. We will get to all of that, but I love Kesha. If you love Kesha, you will love this episode. If you love astrology, you will love this episode. Everyone will love this episode, except people who don't hate men, because I'm gonna talk a lot about how much I hate men, specifically Dr. Luke, but once again, we'll get there. This episode is being released on Friday, December 20th, which means that tomorrow, Saturday, December 21st, is the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the longest night of the year, the deepest experience of night that we will have all year, which, good news, means that every day from here on out is going to get a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter and a little bit longer, and we can be happy again. So that's great news. The winter solstice also marks the day that the sun transitions from Sagittarius into the sign of Capricorn. And the winter solstice is a wonderful time to just reflect on the year. It's very close, obviously, to the new year, and it's a great time to reflect on all of the things that have happened in 2024. Chaos, but 2025 is going to be even more chaotic, so we don't even know. You have no idea what's coming yet. None of us do. It's a great time to set intentions and goals for your 2025. So I highly recommend just taking the day or taking a few hours out of the day on Saturday to just sit down and journal and write and reflect. I think it'll do really, really well for you moving forward. Then on Monday, December 23rd, the sun is going to make a square to the lunar nodes. They are currently in Aries and Libra still, but about to transition into Pisces and Virgo. The lunar nodes are where eclipses happen. So the sun squaring them actually indicates that we are halfway between eclipse seasons. The last eclipses, you might remember, happened in September. And so this is also a good time to reflect and to set intentions. Since the nodes are moving, we are starting a new story based on where Aries and Pisces and Libra and Virgo are in your chart. So it's a good time to look at the themes of the house where you have Aries and Libra and see what story played out there over the past year and a half to 2 years. And then look at where you have Pisces and Virgo and say, what's your current situation in these houses, this house axis? You know, you can't predict what's going to happen in the eclipses. That's sort of the point. However, you can get a baseline so that when you look back in 2 years, when the nodes move into the Aquarius Leo axis, you can say, okay, here's where I started. Here's where I am now. Here's what the eclipse has changed in my life. The next day, Tuesday, December 24th, Christmas Eve for those who celebrate, Jupiter in Gemini will be making a square to Saturn in Pisces. This is not fun astrology. This is going to create inner tension. Jupiter has that desire to expand. It's the planet of abundance and bounty. And Saturn is Jupiter's opposite. Saturn is boundaries. Saturn is being realistic. And so Jupiter just wants to be expansive, but Saturn, in a square, which is a tough aspect, is saying, hold on there. You can't do all of that. There are boundaries. There are things that you need to worry about here. So there will be inner tension on Christmas Eve. It's fine. Then the day after Christmas, Thursday, December 26th, we're going to have Mercury in Sagittarius opposing Jupiter in Gemini, and then Mercury in Sagittarius making that same square to Saturn in Pisces. Mercury opposing Jupiter is sort of a fun energy, especially if you're any kind of writer or communicator. This is the day to do your writing and communicating, whether it's podcasting or making TikToks or whatnot. Jupiter is going to bring you really big ideas. It's also a good time to question your beliefs because Jupiter represents philosophy and it's retrograde. So it's asking us to go over our past, look at what beliefs have I held in the past? Where did they come from? Do I still believe in those things? And you can, write about it, journal it out, try to figure out like what feels really authentic to you And what beliefs are you holding on to because you've believed them for a long time? It's a good day to spend alone if possible, but I know a lot of people will be with their families because it's the day after Christmas. So if you are with family, don't debate anyone. Like, this is not a good day to get into arguments. They're not going to go anywhere, and literally nothing good is going to come out of them. Like, avoid. Don't do it. And don't sign any contracts. I don't know what contracts people sign on the day after Christmas, but don't. Just don't do it. Just wait till the next day. It is fine. It is a quick transit. All right, that's all I had to cover for the astrology for the upcoming week. So now we can move on to Kesha Rose. Also, I just wanted to provide a quick trigger warning. I will be mentioning sexual assault and eating disorders in moments throughout this episode. It's not going to be a huge part of it, but if you know that that's something that you're sensitive to, just, take care of yourself. Okay. So on March 1st, 1987 at 12:10 a.m. in Los Angeles, California, Kesha burst into this world. She has a 0-degree Sagittarius rising. When I say burst, she burst into this world. She said, I am ready to fuck some shit up. New moon, Sagittarius rising, 0 degrees. This girl is a force of nature. A little bit of background on Kesha is that her mom is a singer-songwriter. Her name is Kesha Sebert. She actually co-wrote the song Old Flames Can't Hold a Candle to You for Dolly Parton in 1978. But Kesha is not a Nepo baby per se. Her family is pretty poor. She grew up on welfare. She never knew who her father was. She has 2 brothers. And when she was 4, her mom moved her and her brothers to Nashville to pursue her singer-songwriter career. Kesha actually does a duet with Dolly Parton to the song Old Flames Can't Hold a Candle to You on her album Rainbow, which is just beautiful and divine. Kesha is an extremely smart and talented woman. She played trumpet and saxophone growing up. She got almost a perfect score on her SATs, and she was also offered a scholarship to Barnard College, which is part of Columbia University. Another fun fact about Kesha is that her mom hosted an episode of The Simple Life where she invited Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie to their home in Nashville, and the episode aired in 2005. And then Kesha would go on to sing backing vocals for Nothing in This World by Paris Hilton just a few years later. Kesha grew up writing music with her mom, and they wrote the song Steven together when Kesha was 16. If you have heard the song Steven, you know that this is absolutely unhinged. I was like, you wrote this with your mother? This is a song about stalking. Like, this is a song about having a crush and being so obsessed with him that you want to knit him a sweater out of your hair. I love it. Iconic. Absolutely perfect. I wish my mom and I could write a song together about stalking a man, but I'm a lesbian and I think she might be too. I digress. Kesha had been recording and sending around demos of her music, and one of them finally made its way into Max Martin's hands. And in 2017, he convinced her to drop out of high school and move to LA and start her music career. So she did not take the Barnard College scholarship. She did not even finish high school. She drops out, moves to LA, 2005, 17 years old. She's shopped around a couple of different record labels and finally signs a 6-album contract with Dr. Luke in 2005. Kesha is the first artist that Dr. Luke ever signs. She is 18, he is 32. Okay, now we have some background info. I want to look at Kesha's birth chart before we get into her career because it gets really crazy really fast. As I mentioned earlier, the first thing I noticed when I looked at Kesha's birth chart was that she has a 0-degree rising in Sagittarius. 0 degrees is considered a critical degree in astrology, and any 0-degree placement, no matter what sign it's in, has a little bit of Aries energy. A 0-degree ascendant says, I'm confident, I'm optimistic, I'm exuberant, I'm a go-getter, I am going to achieve what I want, but you don't really have the wisdom to back that up yet. You're just really excited to get going. Combine that with the energy of Sagittarius rising, which is a fire sign, and you get someone who is cheerful, outgoing, and independent, someone who's extremely lucky and stumbles into good fortune wherever they go, someone who is a spiritual soul, who loves to connect with nature, and someone whose goal in life is to seek the truth. The downside of a Sagittarius rising is that they can be overzealous and reckless when they're searching for experience and meaning. And so they need to develop their Gemini qualities. Gemini is opposite Sagittarius, those mercurial qualities, so that they can pull it down and actually achieve what they want when they need to. They can be big and expansive most of the time, but they need to pull it back at some point to like achieve a goal. Being a Sagittarius rising means that her chart ruler is Jupiter, the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius. And Kesha's Jupiter is in the sign of Pisces at the 29th degree, which is also a critical degree, also called the anaretic degree. Jupiter also happens to be the traditional ruler of Pisces. The modern ruler is Neptune, but I consider Jupiter the ruler of Pisces because it really makes sense. Jupiter is so big and boundless and expansive and abundant, and Pisces is sort of like endless. Like Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and it concerns not just this world, but other worlds as well. It's really like interdimensional. There's no limit to what Jupiter can do here because it has the entire universe to explore and stretch out into, which is really good for Kesha specifically because this 29th degree, the anaretic degree of Jupiter, really means that Jupiter takes the qualities that it already has and then does more. It's like an expansion of the most expansive planet that we have, but because it's in Pisces, it can handle that. Like literally for her, like no dream is too big. She can do literally whatever she sets her mind to, and this is one of the reasons why I think that she's actually a divine being incarnated onto this earth. I mean, we all are, but like she is a goddess, I think. But if you were to have Jupiter in Virgo or Gemini in general, probably wouldn't be that great. If you had Jupiter at the 29th degree of Virgo or Gemini, forget it. Like you are too big for your britches and nothing is going to work the way you want it to. Pisces, beautiful. Kesha has 4 planets in Pisces, which is a mutable water sign. In addition to Jupiter, she also has her sun, moon, and Mercury here. Your sun is your like life's path, that what you strive for every single day and throughout your life. Your moon is what you truly, truly are. Like inside, you don't have to work for it. It's just who you are. And so the fact that her life purpose is who she is honestly something that's really beautiful. This is a hallmark of people who are born on new moons. They have the same sun and moon sign. The enlightened side of Pisces is the spiritualist and the dreamer, but the shadow side of Pisces is the martyr and the escapist. Pisces has to do with substance abuse on the shadow side, so, doing escapism via substances. So anyone who has Pisces placements should always be careful not to use substances. I'm Pisces rising. I used to be an alcoholic. It is what it is. The journey for a Pisces sun is to keep your feet firmly planted on the ground and to stay grounded while your head is up in the clouds and you're exploring other worlds and you're figuring things out and you're becoming enlightened. And then you're supposed to bring that enlightenment down to earth and share your wisdom with other people. And that wisdom really is that life is all a dream. And if you think about it, if you've read the 4 agreements, you understand this. Like, we see things through our own eyes. There is no true reality because we are all imagining things all the time. Like we all see colors a little bit differently. We all see everything a little bit differently. We are sort of dreaming at all times. It's Pisces' job to come down and let people know about that. Pisces has wonderful gifts, including forgiveness, spirituality, adaptability, gentleness, and compassion, but they also have some struggles. They can struggle once again with escapism. They can have a victim complex. They can feel inferior and unworthy, and they can practice self-indulgence. If you are a Pisces, you can avoid these things by setting boundaries, taking good care of yourself, and making sure to remain grounded. Once again, immensely powerful energy. Jupiter, traditional ruler, boundless. No dream is too big. Like Pisces should dream and Pisces should write down their dreams. It's very important for this placement to keep a dream journal. And another thing about Pisces is that you're never going to fully know them. Like so much is unseen and they're not people who will go out and like tell everyone all their business. So a Pisces is always going to be just like a little bit mysterious and like a little bit head in the clouds. Mercury in Pisces is actually a debilitated placement because Pisces is opposite of Virgo and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. This can look like attention problems, having ADHD, and also having trouble communicating your feelings specifically. These people are often artists, and this is really why. Like, sometimes it's very hard for these people to put their thoughts into words, and so they need to put them into other mediums like visual art, graphic design, paintings, music without lyrics, etc. It is actually interesting that Kesha is a songwriter because those are words, but Kesha has also done a lot of other art. She's been like designing and sewing her tour outfits since she was a child. She had a TV show at one point. She has done a lot outside of just songwriting, but I feel that her songs are also very like straightforward and confessional. She doesn't try to like dress the words up in Piscean language. It's very much like, this is what happened. Listen to me. But people still freak out because they're like taboo topics. We will get to this later. Something that can help if you have a Mercury in Pisces is that you can express your emotions to yourself first, whether that's internally in your head or writing them down. Work on how to say them to like accurately convey what you're feeling and then communicate your feelings to other people. Another placement in her chart that is so important is that she has Saturn in Sagittarius in her first house. And Saturn in Sagittarius is like the placement of a pop star. Like, this is the pop star placement. It's a placement of people who turn their creativity into their career. And Kesha's a pop star, like through and through. This is like very, very crazy. This is not technically a debilitated placement, but it sort of is like in an honorary way because Sagittarius is Jupiter's sign and Jupiter and Saturn are opposites. Jupiter wants to expand as much as possible. Saturn wants to contract and set boundaries and be realistic. These people are the best at pursuing their dreams. They have just like a reckless, steamrolling way of chasing what they want. This is someone who will like, you know, start a business before they even know what they want to do with a business. They come up with a name and they're like, we're going with it and we'll figure the rest out later. And honestly, it usually works for them. Even if like that business fails, they got the hang of it. You know, they figured out what it takes to start a business and next time they're going to do it even better. Saturn is all about jumping through hoops. Like, Saturn makes you go through the stages one by one to get what you want and to accomplish your goals. And Jupiter is up here like, why do I have to do that? You know, I can just dream big and I shouldn't have to jump through these hoops. And honestly, if you have Jupiter as your chart ruler, if you're a Sagittarius or Pisces rising, you don't really have to jump through these hoops. You know, you can just take your dream and then coast above the hoops and do whatever you want. But we are people and we try to do what other people do to feel normal. So Sagittarius Saturn will often add just like elements of danger to the hoops that they jump through. They'll be like, I want to do this one while balancing a chainsaw on my head. And it's like, okay, you don't have to do that, but they just need the excitement. Like, they can't just do things in a normal Saturnian way. It's just antithetical to who they are. In yet another debilitated placement, I feel like all of the charts that I've covered on my first two episodes have so many debilitated placements. Kesha has her Mars in Taurus. Taurus is opposite Scorpio. Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. This is debilitated because Taurus is a receiver. It's a lot of receiving energy, and Mars is aggressive and pushes out. So this placement has a lot of like tension and friction and frustration in terms of like, what am I getting and what am I giving? Because they don't really like to give. These people can be loners, they're afraid of excess, and they're always working on themselves. And the way to overcome the debilitation of a Mars in Taurus is to create beauty. Taurus is ruled by Venus, the planet of love and beauty, and Mars wants to put out. So in order to avoid this inner frustration where you want to receive, but you have to give freely, create beauty. These people can be actually the most amazing artists because they have that Taurian determination and diligence. And when they practice their craft, which is something that Tauruses like to do, they love to practice, they love to have a routine, and they practice creating beauty. These are the people who you'll find as like the piano masters. You know, they've put in so much work and they can create so much beauty with their talents. But another thing about Mars and Taurus is that Taurus is the bull. The bull can be very docile, very predictable, hanging out in the field, chewing grass, having a good time. But you wave a red flag and that bull is charging at you. Bulls can be very dangerous. They can maim, they can kill. So if you anger a Mars in Taurus, like you you are playing with fire. So be aware. And this is, once again, everyone should know, like, I think that we should walk around with our birth charts plastered on our chest so that I can know if I'm dealing with a Mars in Taurus, I am not pushing their buttons. But we don't have that. And so I just have to live in fear every day of my life. Just kidding. Her Mars in Taurus is opposite her Pluto in Scorpio, which is an extremely difficult and challenging aspect to have. We actually recently had this aspect in different signs in our sky here on in 2024 in this universe, where Mars in Cancer opposed Pluto in Capricorn at that anaretic 29th degree of Capricorn and Cancer. Things got a little bit dicey. We are actually building up to another one where Mars retrograde in Leo is going to oppose Pluto in Aquarius. So that will happen again. And then we're going to have a third one after Mars retrogrades back into Cancer and then stations direct and moves back into Leo. Mars in Leo is going to oppose Pluto in Aquarius once again. And then we'll be done with that for about 2 years. So thank God. What this aspect means in her birth chart specifically is that it might have led her to start out her life feeling a victim, especially with all of her Pisces placements and the victim complex that Pisces can have. But it is something that lends itself to a person who has an independent and stubborn nature. This is Pluto opposing Mars in general, but Pluto in the fixed sign Scorpio, Mars in the fixed sign Taurus, especially. Someone who is very independent and very stubborn. This can rub some people the wrong way, which is a theme in her life. However, these people have an amazing ability to transmute and transform energy and power by combining the best of Mars's strength and creativity with Pluto's determination and power. And these people will find self-awareness through lived experience, not through reading books like you might find in some of the Mercury signs, Virgo and Gemini. This aspect gives you a choice. Do you want to rule or do you want to ruin? And I think that Kesha has chosen a bit of both in her 37 years so far, but I think she's leaning rule. At this point, she's ruling. Next, I want to talk about her Chiron placement because this is also going to become important later in the story. And as you can see here, Kesha has her Chiron in her 7th house of Gemini. Chiron is an asteroid. It's the most commonly discussed asteroid. It's like a default cosmic being on AstroSeek. Chiron is the wounded healer. Where your Chiron is in your chart, both the sign and the house, are wounds that you have that you need, like your life purpose is to heal them. For Kesha, she has Chiron in Gemini, and the wound of people who have Chiron in Gemini is being misunderstood. These are people who have the natural curiosity of a Gemini, but when they've asked questions or brought up topics in the past, people have become offended because they're like, oh, we shouldn't talk about that sort of thing. This is also something that can happen when you're a child in school and you raise your hand to ask a question or give an answer and everyone laughs at you because they think it's a stupid question or because you said something that's wrong. And you can become so scared to talk that you just don't talk anymore. You hold all of that energy in because you're so afraid of being misunderstood. Or you can continue talking and just have a wound that no one ever understands you. I see this coming through with Kesha because she has a very different songwriting style than other artists, especially in the year 2010 when she released her first album. I also see this with her 0 Degree Rising. Like, she really is a pioneer. We would not have so much of the music that we have today if we did not have Kesha. And I can totally understand people being offended by her talking about partying and drinking and doing drugs and throwing up in the backyard and slipping the word cunt into a song in the year 2010. Like, she says things that can offend people, but it really seems, and I mean, I don't know Kesha personally. I really wish I did, but I don't. But it really seems like she either has healed this Chiron wound of being misunderstood, and she's like, I don't care if people misunderstand me. I'm going to say what I want to say. Or she might have some insecurity behind that, or she might not have it anymore, but she might have had it in her earlier years. But she just put out the music anyway. She said, whatever. I'm making a ton of money off of this. I do not care if people are offended by what I say. And honestly, a lesson for us all to learn. The last thing I want to cover before I go back into Kesha's story is the nodes of fate. I talked a little bit about the nodes in the upcoming astrology earlier. These nodes are where eclipses happen, but the nodes in your own birth chart really show your destiny and your fate and your sense of purpose. We have two nodes. They are opposite each other. We have the North Node, which is our destiny and what we're moving towards. And we have the South Node, which is lessons from our past life that we need to move away from. Your South Node represents a place that probably feels really comfortable and natural to you. And this is because these are the lessons that you learned in your past life. You come into the world with those feeling really natural and innate. And we like to do things that feel easy to us, but that's not the lesson of the nodes. Where you'll really find your sense of purpose and destiny and a lot of fortune and good luck is when you move away from your South Node sign and house, and when you move towards your North Node sign and house. I just had a moment where I remembered that my South Node is in my 4th house and of home, and I actually never leave my house. And that's probably not good for my destiny. So I have to have a private reckoning with that, and I'm scared. So bisexual Pisces icon Kesha Rose has the North Node in Aries in her 5th house, which means that her South Node is in Libra in her 11th house. The 5th house is the natural house of Leo, and these people will find their destiny by pursuing individuality, taking center stage, following their desires, strengthening their willpower and their self-confidence, taking risks, enjoying life and treating it like a game, and just having fun. Typical Leonine qualities. Their Achilles heel can be their innate desire from their past life to yield to peer pressure and to just go with the flow, but they will find their strength and power and destiny when they carve their own path, and people will follow them and accept them and love them once they do that. In the process of creating and providing happiness and entertainment to other people, they are going to gain the reward of knowing that they are an important participant in life. Big life in general for the collective. And the North Node being in Aries is someone who needs to release a past life's people-pleasing tendencies and codependence and move towards independence, not caring about peer pressure. These are honestly very aligned, doing whatever you want without considering what others think about it, and being your own person and being very independent. These are people who should be entrepreneurs and who should not work for other people. I will note, jumping ahead a little bit, but Kesha did just announce that she is starting her own record label, Kesha Records. So very, very happy for her that she has finally accomplished this goal of working for herself. Okay, that is what I had to say about her birth chart for now. And so I will get back to our story. So where we left off was the year 2005, and in 2005, Kesha signed with Dr. Luke. She was 18, he was 32. She is actually the first person that Dr. Luke ever signed. I'm going to talk a little bit about progressions, secondary progressions in this episode. So if you don't know anything about progressions, I just want to give a quick overview. So you have your birth chart when you are born, and then you have your progressed birth chart. You always have your natal birth chart, but you also have one that changes. Every year, your sun moves 1 degree. If you are born and your sun is at 0 degrees Pisces, after 30 years, you're going to become an Aries, basically. Your sun will move to 0 degrees Aries on your progressed chart. All of your planets progress. They move at slightly faster and slower speeds, depending on how fast the planets actually move in the sky, how long their orbit is. People will usually have 3 sun progressions in their lifetime, if they live to about 90 years old. 3 Mercury, 3 Venus, maybe 2 Mars, and then the moon progresses through a sign every 2.5 years. So you will have a moon progression quite often in your life. And that's just a change in your emotional focus. My moon moved to 0 degrees literally the day that I broke up with my ex-boyfriend. If you can look on AstroSeek at your progressions, you will note the dates and you can say, oh, this is the day that this big thing happened to me. This makes sense. It is honestly very uncanny, and I highly recommend checking it out if you are interested. When your sun is at 29 degrees of a sign, it is saying your life is about to change and it will never be the same, so get ready. When your sun is at 0 degrees, it is saying, welcome to your new life. You're going to be here for 30 years. Get used to it. So shortly after she signs with Dr. Luke, her progressed sun is at 29 degrees of Pisces. And then in December 2007, when she's 19, her sun progresses to 0 degrees of Aries. And now she's in Aries, and she already had sort of Aries energy anyway because of her 0 degree ascendant. But this is very much like, okay, we're on fire now. We are out of Pisces. We're out of this like dreamy, artistic, head in the clouds sort of place that we were, and we are going for it. We are going to get our dream, and she did. After signing with Dr. Luke, Kesha sang background vocals on Nothing in This World by Paris Hilton, and she was also in Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl video. Kesha's first real public recognition occurred when she appeared on Flo Rida's song Right Round in 2009. And then on January 1st, 2010, she releases her first album, Animal, at age 22. This is the chart for the date that Animal was released. I've done so much research and analysis for this episode. I'm not going to go too deep into the charts of the albums, but all I have to say about it is that it's really positive. I know that Kesha is into astrology, but I don't know how into it she was when she was 22, and I don't know if she had any power over choosing the release date for the album or if that was all on her record label, but whether it's divine guidance or a choice, a very positive chart. All the blue lines for the record in this chart and every chart that you pull from astroseek.com, which is where I get my charts, is harmonious, and all of the red lines are difficult aspects. I will also note that this album did go quadruple platinum in my car when I was 16 years old. Her lead single for this album, Tik Tok, broke the US record for the highest sales week for a single by a female artist ever in the US, passing 610,000 downloads in the first week. The song spent 9 weeks at the #1 on Billboard, which was the longest running debut single by a female artist to hold that place since the song You Light Up My Life by Debbie Boone in 1978. Kesha very quickly became a deeply polarizing artist because one of her songs is literally titled See You Next Tuesday. No, because of her deliberately unpolished aesthetic and her juvenile stage persona, which she just described as her natural personality times 10. It really angered a lot of older people who were like, this girl is just a mess. And it's like, yes, that's the point. She's singing about throwing up in a backyard. Did you never party? You never went out? You never got drunk? Okay. Another thing about Jupiter is that it represents the legal system, and Kesha has had a lot of legal troubles in her life, interactions with the legal system. So the first one happens in May 2010 when Kesha is sued by her former managers from DAS Communications for $14 million. They accuse her of extending their deadline to get a major record contract and squeezing them out of her career. Kesha countersues because they had acted as an unlicensed talent agent in California, which is illegal. Only licensed talent agents are allowed to work in California. And the two parties settled in 2012 prior to the release of her second album, Warrior. Kesha also was named the U.S. Humane Society's first global ambassador and did a lot of work for animals, including co-starring with Iggy Pop in a PETA campaign and writing to McDonald's on behalf of the Humane Society to protest the conditions in their slaughterhouses. Kesha is a vegetarian and an icon and a queen, and we love her. All right, next up is Warrior is released on November 30th, 2012 at age 25, her second studio album. Warrior includes bangers such as Die Young, Come On, Crazy Kids, Gold Trans Am, my favorite song to request at Rocco's. Just a beautiful and perfect album. Okay, post Warrior, we get into her struggles with Dr. Luke. In January 2014, Kesha checks into a rehab center to treat her bulimia and starts to work on her third album, Rainbow. In July 2014, her progressed Venus enters the sign of Pisces, which is a big change in her life. She's going through a lot at this time. She's in rehab. She's trying to cure her eating disorder. She's about to launch her case against Dr. Luke. just a lot of life changes. Remember, you only get like 3 Venus progressions in your whole entire life. This is a big moment for her. This is a really big summer. In October 2014, Kesha formally accuses Dr. Luke of sexual assault and battery, sexual harassment, gender violence, emotional abuse, and violation of California business practices, which had occurred over 10 years working together. We will go over Dr. Luke's chart in a minute, but he's a Libra. What did I tell you about Libra men? Don't trust them. Kesha alleges that Dr. Luke raped her for the first time on October 5th, 2005, after Nikki Hilton's 22nd birthday party, when she was 18 and he was 32. She alleges that when she was very drunk, Dr. Luke gave her a pill and told her that it was a sober pill and that she took it and that she doesn't remember anything happening after that. In the morning, he left to go record with Katy Perry, and she said that she woke up naked in his room. Her private parts were sore, and she began placing calls for help to her mother and to a friend. I'm going to pull some quotes here from Kesha's lawsuit against Dr. Luke specifically because I want you to see how terrible of a man he is. She says, "I specifically remember him telling me that if I ever tried to get away from him for any reason, that he would tie me up in litigation until my career was over. He seemed to bask in his power and also stated that he would just drag his feet until I would be too old for anyone to care about. He made it very clear to me and to my mom that he owned me and there was nothing I could do about it." Remember this for later because these themes do appear in his birth chart. Dr. Luke did so many conniving, scary, and manipulative things over the past 10 years that this statement could be a novel. He took credit for things he didn't do. He took credit for songs he didn't write and for a television show that he didn't actually produce. Dr. Luke tore my family apart and pitted us against each other. He ridiculed my body and my weight to the point where I almost killed myself. He encouraged me to not eat, even when I was 8 days with no solid food and skipping meals to work out 2 times a day. He called me horrible names. All of these things are despicable. Regarding her family, what he was trying to do is her mom was a co-writer on so many of her songs, and Dr. Luke made her put other people as co-writers on those songs, or else he would take away her mom's name completely. So her mom wouldn't get any money, and once again, her family grew up in poverty on welfare, like she was really trying to get money for her mother and further her mother's songwriting career. I will now read a quote from Dr. Luke's lawsuit because he states, "Yet subsequently she claims that she is absolutely certain that she was raped on October 5th, 2005. She reports that she blacked out after she left a party and has no memories until she awoke the next day in Mr. Gottwald's hotel suite." Luke Gottwald, Dr. Luke. A blackout occurs when, as a result of the intake of certain substances, a person's brain does not store any memories of what is occurring. The person is unable to ever recover their memories of this time period because the memories were not stored. Blackouts are frequently associated with excessive drinking of alcoholic beverages. Miss Sebert testified that she believes something sexual happened on the evening of October 5th, but cannot remember any details, such as what sexual activity occurred, when it occurred, where it occurred, or who it occurred with, if at all. Part of her belief was based on her recollection that she woke up naked in the bed in Mr. Gottwald's suite. Mr. Gottwald testified that he slept on the couch and let Miss Sebert sleep on the bed, and Miss Sebert cannot dispute this because she has no memories of Mr. Gottwald ever being in the hotel room with her. 6 years later, on December 12, 2011, Miss Sebert told her therapist that she felt as if something sexual might have happened, but she didn't know for sure. Miss Sebert has a history of blackouts after drinking alcohol. She has no memories of her behavior during the blackouts, just as she has no memory of what happened during the blackout of October 5th. If she has no memories, it is my opinion that she cannot definitively recall that she was raped during that evening. This is very upsetting. I just want to talk a little bit about this because I was also raped when I was blackout drunk. And first of all, any sexual contact when you are drunk, specifically blackout drunk, is rape. You cannot consent during that time period. Point blank, period. Argue with the wall if you do not agree. Second of all, this experience is hell. Like, you know, your body stays keeping the score, right? You know something happened to you. You absolutely know it, and you can't know it in your memory. And I remember sitting on a Zoom call. This was 2020 during the COVID pandemic, so we couldn't go to courts in person, but I was sitting on a Zoom call with former Los Angeles DA Jackie Lacey, and just hearing from my rapist's lawyer that he was like, you say this happened, but you also said his hands were here, so how could he have possibly done that? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I have so little memory of this occurring. I know that it happened. And it's so hard because it's like, what do you want? You know, like, do you want me to have cameras in my room? Like, what the preponderance of evidence that they require from a woman that she was raped is just so wild. And the fact that even when these things are on film, like the case of Dominique and Giselle Pellico, like, he was just sentenced and he only received 20 years. I just can't. Another man who was a copycat, Dominique Pellico, was only sentenced to 12 years, even though he arranged multiple men to rape his wife. It's very frustrating. And I'm a lesbian, so it's easy for me to say this, but like, I don't think that women should engage with men, honestly. Like, it's too dangerous for us, especially right now. But what I will say is that we should all believe women, because I know men and I know women, and I'm inclined to believe women when they say that men did something really bad to them. Anyway, this is a chart of October 5th, 2005 in Los Angeles, California, where this event occurred. And you can see here that Kesha's transit Sun and Mercury are in her 11th house. 11th house is social, it's friends, it's community, it's social groups. And the Sun is, it's your identity. So Kesha was in a very social place at this month of her life, as well as Mercury. So that's communicating to a lot of different people. She's 18. She's just moved to LA. She just signed with Dr. Luke. She's at Paris Hilton's sister's birthday party. She's just, making so many friends and meeting so many people. It makes so much sense that her Sun and Mercury are here in her 11th house. But then we see that the transit Venus and the Moon are in her 12th house. And your 12th house is your behind the scenes life. It represents times of illness, incarceration. It represents self-sabotage. It just represents like something is going on behind the scenes. Venus, love and beauty. Moon, your moods and emotions. This is a very like introspective time for Kesha. It's showing that she really went inside herself. She has all this focus on her social aspect and her social life, but internally she is, inside herself. She is not out in the world. Mars is transiting her 6th house of illness, which is a very, very tough transit. And Chiron is transiting her 2nd house of singing and career and money, which indicates to me that she has a wound around using her voice in the way that she makes her money. She has to work with her abuser in order to make money. And specifically, she has to, remove her mom's songwriting credit or dilute her mom's songwriting credit on her songs. She has so many wounds around her career in singing, which is something that she loves and is so passionate about, but it's being made to be an incredibly wounding experience for her. And we can also see that Pluto was in Sagittarius at this time. It's like a 14-ish year transit in Sagittarius. Having Pluto in the 1st house is a transit that triggers powerful transformations and self-discovery. It's a very challenging transit. It pushes you to confront your deepest fears and to face your own shadows. But the bright side is it offers you powerful growth and renewal to shed your old self and let your new, more authentic self emerge. And I think that we will see going forward, but also intuitively have the knowledge that this was a really powerful transformation for Kesha. This night changed everything. Obviously, incredibly tragic and horrible, but without these lows, she could not have ascended to the highs that she has climbed to. And this was really a catalyst for a very powerful transformation to bring her into more of her power and her authentic self. You can also see here that her natal Pluto in Scorpio is squaring transit Saturn in Leo. This is a longer transit. Saturn is pretty slow moving, but this transit indicates that powerful forces outside of your control are creating roadblocks, and you need to make hard decisions that will affect your life's direction, specifically not going public about her rape at this time and continuing to work with Dr. Luke. We also have transit Pluto in Sagittarius squaring her natal moon in Pisces. This is a long transit. Pluto moves only like a couple of degrees max per year. So, it's just sitting here squaring her natal moon. And this is a transit that exposes deeply buried feelings and can lead to compulsive and destructive behavior. Sexual abuse is actually a hallmark of this transit. So is jealousy, manipulation, guilt tripping, bullying, and domestic violence. I was thinking about this as I was doing the research for this episode. I'm very glad that I actually might never experience this transit in my life. My moon is in Gemini. I wasn't alive during Pluto in Virgo, and Pluto in Pisces. I'll probably experience it, but I'll be much older. But for people who go through this transit young, like Kesha did at age 18, it's just so much. And this is once again why it is so important to know your transits and know what's coming up for you so that you can prepare. So, lawsuit filed in 2014. The lawsuit had been going on for nearly a year before Kesha sought an injunction to release her from Kemosabe Records and from her 6-album contract with Dr. Luke. And then on February 19th, 2016, New York Supreme Court Justice Shirley Kornreich ruled against the request. I do not support all women. And then on April 16th, 2016, Shirley Kornreich dismissed the case altogether, saying that even if the allegations of sexual assault were accepted as true, the 5-year statute of limitations had run out on the 2 most specific rape allegations, one occurring in 2005, the other in 2008. Okay. As all of this is happening, Kesha is nearing the exact point of her Saturn return. Her Saturn return went exact on December 23rd, 2016, a couple of months before her 30th birthday. And I talked about this in my last episode, but your Saturn return is when transit Saturn returns to the exact same place it was when you were born. And this is a time of difficult challenges. It's sort of like a rite of passage. It's your first real rite of passage coming into your adult self, really gaining the powers of Saturn. And since Saturn is in her first house, this is really about redefining who she is, overcoming challenges related directly to who she is. Also, her progressed Saturn stationed retrograde on January 7th, 2017. So close to this. This is another big direction of your life. Saturn will only probably turn retrograde on your progressed chart once in your whole entire life. This is a big deal, and it's just very spooky how all of this timing lines up together. She also had a lunar progression to 0 degrees, but those are relatively common. They happen every 2.5 years. But then back into positive stuff. On August 11th, 2017, she releases her 3rd album, Rainbow, at age 30. And she received her first Grammy nominations ever for this album. She was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Album and also for Best Pop Solo Performance for her song Praying, which is directed at Dr. Luke. We kind of speed through the rest of this. Kesha releases High Road, her 4th album, on January 31st, 2020 at age 32. And then 3.5 years later, she releases her 5th album, Gag Order, on May 19th, 2023 at age 36. Gag Order is sort of like a fuck you to Dr. Luke also. On June 22nd, 2023, Kesha and Dr. Luke announced through a joint statement that their case was officially settled a month before it was set to go to trial. In her statement, Kesha says that while she doesn't recall everything that happened the night of the alleged assault, she is looking forward to moving on with her life and wishes peace to all parties involved. Dr. Luke continued to deny Kesha's original claims in his statement. Details of the settlement were not revealed immediately. Here's the chart for June 22nd, 2023. You can see that the sun is in her 8th house of Cancer. This signifies that it's time for changes. It brings profound transformations and shines light on what is hidden and may reveal information that has been hidden from you until now. Mercury is in her 7th house of Gemini, which is great for private conversations and resolving issues with a business partner. Sometimes astrology is so literal. And Jupiter is transiting her 6th house of Taurus, where your career is at the forefront during this year-long transit, and it's an ideal time to repay or settle any debts. A year later, on June 29th, 2024, Kesha announces her new single, Joyride, the first single on her new album, which she will be releasing under her own label, Kesha Records. This is her first music after separating from RCA and Kemosabe Records and Dr. Luke. On July 4th, 2024, Kesha released her new song, Joyride, which is a banger. And then in November of this year, she released her second single from the album, Delusional, which is also a banger. All right. That is the Kesha story. That is her timeline. I now want to look at Dr. Luke's birth chart because I'm sure that Kesha, as someone who is into astrology, wishes that she knew what she knows now about astrology before she signed a record contract with him, because this birth chart, I think he might be the actual devil, because this birth chart is not pretty. We don't have any birth time, so we don't have any houses, but he was born on September 26, 1973 in Providence, Rhode Island. I would first like to note that he is a Libra sun, most likely a Libra moon, a Libra Mercury, Libra Uranus, and Libra Pluto. What did I tell you? And he has a Scorpio Venus. Nope, absolutely not. Goodbye. I say probably has a Libra moon because we don't have his birth time. There's a very short window, the first few hours of the morning, where he could be a Virgo moon, which is quite manipulative as well. But it's most likely that he's a Libra moon. He's also born on a new moon, just like Kesha was. Most strikingly to me, he has the most challenging Saturn placement possible, which is Saturn in Cancer. This is a debilitated placement because it's opposite Saturn sign Capricorn, and Capricorn is Saturn. It's such a Saturnian sign. Cancer is the polar opposite. Cancer is ruled by the moon. The moon and Saturn just look at life from opposite points of view. They clash completely. They do not get along in any way. This is a very, very difficult placement for a very, very difficult planet. First of all, it's very heavy. These people can tend to seem like dark clouds. They can have an Eeyore vibe about them. The littlest things can send them completely over the edge. If someone changes plans at the last minute, it can really freak them out and work them up. It's a very neurotic tendency when it comes to unexpected changes. These people also hold a freaking grudge. They are really prone to guilt tripping, control issues, emotional manipulation, telling their family or people who are like family to them that they're disappointed in them. And all of these things will give these people really bad karma. Saturn is the planet of karma. And going against, Saturn throws challenges at you and he expects you to face them head on. So not facing them head on and blaming other people and deflecting and manipulating, it's just really, really bad karma for you in general. These people have a tendency to impose their emotions on other people. They are often really controlling of other people's emotional atmosphere. And you need to watch out for needing to vent to everyone, needing to tell your whole emotional life story to everyone, and also making an identity around your own emotional catastrophe. For example, if Dr. Luke, I don't know if this happened, but if he were to go around in 2024, 10 years later, and still be oh yeah, this bitch, Kesha, falsely accused me of raping her, feel terrible for me, everyone should feel so bad for me. That's just collecting more and more bad karma. And then the problem with this is that without even trying or noticing that it's happening, you're idealizing chaos and you're creating your whole identity around emotional pain. And doing that invites more of it into your life because you're creating a situation where if you take away your emotional pain and the places in your life where you were a victim, these people are also tend to lie to themselves. So they will really believe that they were the victim, even when they were the perpetrator in a situation. If you take away that victimhood, they become completely powerless. They don't know what to do anymore. Once again, really, really, really bad karma. The universe's goal for this placement is that it wants to see how empathetic that you can be. And once you stop spinning every narrative to make yourself the victim and you allow yourself to have true memories that are not diluted by your own ego, you can overcome all of these falsehoods and move into a place where you can become a symbol of your community or a symbol of your lifestyle in a positive way. Unfortunately, this is just clearly not something that he's been able to do. So I'm wishing him luck for his next Saturn return in 2032. I'm sure you'll get it this time, bud. I'm really, really hoping this for you and for all of us, I guess. His Mars is also in Taurus and conjunct, basically exactly Kesha's Mars. And so just like I was talking about earlier, the temperamental bull that can be dangerous when provoked, We have two of those now, and they're fighting each other. So we have two people who are, pretty solid, very stubborn, fixed earth sign, and they're butting heads with each other, and it's turning into something dangerous. This is just bad. Like, these two people should not be working together. He also has his sun and his moon conjunct Pluto, and I'm just like, is he actually the devil? And I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, Kesha, I've already stated why I think that she's like a divine goddess incarnated on this earth. And did the universe send the actual devil to her to challenge her and to make her grow and, transform into some more of the immense, honestly, like infinite power that she has? Could only the actual devil like bring that out of her because she's already so strong and powerful? I feel like this might be true. Also, in Kesha's song Praying, which is about Dr. Luke, she says, "You brought the flames and you put me through hell." She knows. She knows. Anyway, a conjunction of Sun and Pluto, in case you or anyone you know has this in your birth chart, creates a person who wields great power and influence and is dark and mysterious. And the moon conjunct Pluto creates someone who has an intense and dramatic personal life, feels things really, really deeply, has control issues, and has dark moods that lead to fear and paranoia. And this is also someone who is very adept at emotional manipulation. Sounds about right. Okay, that is Dr. Luke's chart separately, and now I want to show the synastry of these two. Also, I keep doing this. The chart might be here. I'll get it right in the next video. So first of all, both of these people were born on a new moon. No. People who are born on new and full moons, it is really like this town is only big enough for one of us sort of deal. I don't recommend, and no. So I'm going to start with some of the positive aspects and then move on to some of the negative ones. There are so many aspects between these two people's charts. I'm not going to cover even half of them, but I just wanted to pull the ones that seemed to really fit the situation that we're talking about. So first, I want to acknowledge that Kesha's Mars in Taurus makes a sextile to Dr. Luke's Saturn in Cancer. This is a positive aspect, and it indicates that the Mars partner, so Kesha, expects direction from the other partner, the Saturn partner, Dr. Luke. Saturn is the anchor, the source, and the sense of continuity. When Mars learns to combine their own impulses with Saturn's realistic sense of wisdom, both can make great achievements. Mars aims for the future, while Saturn strengthens the past. This is an excellent aspect for two people who have decided to work together. And I don't doubt that they had like initial chemistry. She was very, very young, so I don't think that she was like thinking about this in a mature way because she couldn't, because she was 18. But I do believe that at the beginning, things went really well for them. They had like an initial chemistry and they initially made good allies in work. But then we get to the negative. So first, as I've already talked about, Kesha's Mars is conjunct Dr. Luke's Mars, both in Taurus. This is like two egos trying to go in the same direction. They can just butt heads. There's competition. It can be really disappointing. This is two people who have sort of like the same drive, and they just find out that they can't work together. So it can be like so exciting at the beginning and then just turn really competitive and sour really fast. Kesha's Pluto in Scorpio is also opposite Dr. Luke's Mars in Taurus, which is an aspect that causes tension, cruelty, hatred, and violence. The Mars partner, Dr. Luke, will continue to push the Pluto partner, Kesha, and push them to realize specifically that if Kesha wants a new start, everything's going to have to change. This leads the Pluto partner to resent the rudeness of these attacks and eventually feel that the relationship only offers harsh treatment and punishment, which is very in line with the statements that we read from Kesha's lawsuit. Kesha's Mercury in Pisces is square Dr. Luke's Neptune in Sagittarius, which indicates that Kesha really perceived Dr. Luke as being a shadow over her thoughts. She didn't trust him. He had devious communication practices, and this aspect just makes it difficult to establish a strong and lasting relationship. Neptune, I will probably talk about more in a different episode, but Neptune isn't technically a malefic planet, but it does lean malefic. It's illusions, it's like things are not as they seem. It clouds things up, it gets murky. And this can tend to be a negative force in people's lives, except when Neptune is retrograde, because then things get clear. So it really depends whether it's direct or retrograde and what aspects it's making in your chart. And then the last aspect that I want to talk about is that Kesha's Neptune in Capricorn is in opposition to Dr. Luke's Saturn in Cancer. Saturn and Neptune are in natural opposition, sort of because of what I was talking about. Saturn really represents material order and responsibility. Neptune symbolizes the spiritual realm. So Dr. Luke probably considered Kesha unpredictable, and Kesha probably thought of Dr. Luke as cumbersome and limited, and as a result their relationship just gets into like a puddle of mud where it's murky and neither of you can see clearly. And then last thing I'm going to go through, I want to look at the chart of the third player in the story, Katy Perry. I mentioned towards the beginning that she was going to show up here, but I just want to recount the roles that she plays in this story. So Kesha was in the music video for I Kissed a Girl. Kesha alleged that Dr. Luke also raped Katy, but Katy denied it under oath. And I don't know if you've seen the text messages between Kesha and Lady Gaga, but if you haven't, I highly recommend looking them up because they're very interesting and illuminating. And this was really hard for Kesha because it could have been like the final piece that took Dr. Luke down. But, for whatever reason, I completely understand not wanting to come forward about being raped. But then Katy announced in spring 2024 that she was working with Dr. Luke again on the Woman's World song, whatever that was, and on her new album 143. How terrible that both of those were flops. Don't mess with karma. I wasn't sure how much I was going to go into Katy's chart, like before I looked it up, and then I looked it up. This is a wild chart. And for the record, she was also born on a new moon. Something's going on here. Like this is not a normal situation. These are people who were sent here to work together to achieve goals or learn things of their own. Katy has 5 planets and her rising in Scorpio, which is crazy. But to her credit, her Venus is not in Scorpio. It is in Sagittarius, which is honestly a really fun placement. She has Pluto in her first house, which we discussed before. That's where transit Pluto was when Kesha went through her sexual assault. But it is a hallmark of a person who will go through immense personal struggle and transformation to realize their power, especially because Pluto is her chart ruler. Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. It just has a lot of emphasis in her life. And, I personally don't really like Katy Perry, but we all do remember that she got a text that her husband, Russell Brand, wanted to get a divorce right before she went on stage and then proceeded to go on stage and perform. She's been through some really tough shit in her life, and I can appreciate that she is a really strong woman despite her making really questionable choices in other places. She has Chiron in Gemini, just like Kesha does, so she probably also has a wound of being misunderstood. And she has Mercury in Scorpio, which is a pseudo-debilitated placement. I covered it in depth in my last episode because Barry Keoghan also has a Mercury in Scorpio. So if you have that placement or you just want to learn more, I highly recommend going and checking out my last episode. Critically, she has her North Node in her 7th house at 28 degrees and 42 minutes of Taurus. This works like an hour, so there's 60 minutes in an hour and then it goes to 29 degrees. This is close enough for me to the anaretic degree of 29 degrees to consider critical. I'm considering this a critical aspect for her. This is an aspect I see a lot in the chart of narcissists. People with their North Node in the 7th house have their South Node in the 1st house of self, which means that they have very selfish tendencies, and their whole purpose and destiny and goal in this life is to release like all of their selfishness and all of their I know it best, my way or the highway, and learn how to be in relationship and partnership with other people in a way that is harmonious and positive and not a battle. And this just brought up this quote from Stevie Nicks for me. Stevie Nicks stated that about 10 years ago, Katy Perry was talking to me about the internet armies of all the girl singers and how cruel and rancid they were. I said, well, I wouldn't know because I'm not on the internet. She said, so who are your rivals? I just looked at her. It was my steely look. I said, Katy, I don't have rivals. I have friends. All the other women singers that I know are friends. Nobody's competing. Get off the internet and you won't have rivals either. I just think that that's very indicative of a 7th house North Node. Pulling up her synastry with Dr. Luke very quickly just to show you. Libra is Katy Perry's 12th house. Her rising, her first house is Scorpio. And obviously, Dr. Luke has 5 planets. Dr. Luke has 5 planets in Libra. And so people who have placements in other people's 12th house might have some past life connections. There's also like, if someone has a conjunction to the South Node, they probably also have a past life conjunction. There's no aspects to the South Node here, but 5 placements in her 12th house, I think that there is some past life connection between Dr. Luke and Katy Perry. And I think this just because I think it really fits the story. I also want to show you Kesha's synastry with Katy Perry because we have a very similar thing going on here. So Scorpio is Kesha's 12th house because her rising, her first house is Sagittarius. And so Katy has the Sun, Moon, Ascendant, Mercury, Saturn, and Pluto in Kesha's 12th house. Possible past life connections. And I also just wanted to cover 2 of their aspects because I think that they're very illuminating for their relationship in general. So Katy Perry's Uranus is square Kesha's Sun in Pisces, which is an aspect that's just disappointing. Kesha is able to see contradictions in Katy and feels that Katy doesn't really appreciate Kesha's warmth. With this aspect, you're likely to see a lot of changes in the direction of the relationship, usually unpredictably and without any sort of obvious reason. Uranus is like innovation, change, and Sun is your identity. So it's like, Kesha's just there. She's the sun. She's bright. She's shining. She is who she is. And Katy's like, you know, change is all over the place. It's like, I don't know what's going on. And so Kesha's just there being like, what is happening? And then after a while, the sun person, Kesha, finally realizes that the Uranus person, Katy Perry, lacks accuracy and thoroughness, which is similar to the next trend that I want to cover, which is that Katy's Neptune in Sagittarius makes a square to Kesha's Jupiter in Pisces. Jupiter encourages Neptune to get lost in his fantasies and his hopes, while Neptune confuses Jupiter about what is right and what is wrong. There's also some like spiritual or religious atmosphere in the relationship, but it's probably imaginary and purely theoretical. Neptune is literally like immaterial. Like, no, you can't touch anything. So in the end, instead of climbing into the clouds together, you may start hating each other and even have feelings of uselessness. All right, that was a lot of information, but I don't know. I love this story because I think that Kesha is a really good role model for women in general, specifically women who have been through sexual assault, women who have not been believed after going through sexual assault, and coming back from it even stronger, starting her own record label, continuing to drop bangers, really doing like a fuck you in Dr. Luke's face by releasing Gag Order, Dr. Fluke, more like it. She really is an icon. She completely changed the face of music. I was 16 when Animal was released, and it just made such an impact on my life. I still listen to Kesha's music all the time, literally all the time. And I really love her. I think she's a wonderful, wonderful person and an icon. And it made me very happy to do all the research for this episode and see that I'm not the only one who feels that way. God also does. Just kidding. I don't really believe in God, but clearly the universe sent her here to expand consciousness, to be a role model, and to really, you know, she's a goddess. Like, I can't think of any other way to say it. She's a goddess, and they sent the devil here to make her come into her power. And she freaking did. She did that shit. Anyway, stream Joyride, stream Delusional. Don't stream 143, and block Dr. Luke everywhere. Okay. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. I'm going to talk to you all next week. I hope you have a very wonderful Christmas, and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and personally, I'm a pagan. I will be heavy celebrating the winter solstice. If anyone wants to, share solstice rituals, please feel free to DM me. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at popstrologypod. You can send me an email at popstrology@proton.me, M-E. And you can check out my website at popstrologypod.com. I love to chat about astrology and pop culture, so happy to talk if anyone has anything that they want to talk about. Anyway, I love you so much. Thank you for being here. Bye.